The South China Sea, on the morning of June 14, 2025, was unusually placid. The vast expanse of water, a critical artery for global trade, shimmered under a hazy sun, appearing almost like a sheet of polished glass. Upon this serene stage moved giants of steel. The USS Nimitz, a supercarrier that is a floating city of American power, led its strike group with a quiet, deliberate confidence. Its mission was simple and transparent, a freedom of navigation patrol. It was a routine exercise, a reaffirmation of international law in waters claimed by many, but owned by none. The carrier's path was predictable, its presence a statement of stability, not aggression. It sailed 180 nautical miles from any contested land, a testament to its right to be there. Accompanying the Nimitz were its guardians. The cruiser, USS Princeton, a vessel bristling with advanced sensors and missile systems, acted as the group's nerve center. The destroyers USS Chung-hoon and USS Kidd flanked the carrier, their crews watchful, their systems alert. Together, they formed a cohesive unit, a network of steel and sailors bound by discipline and technology. Their purpose was not to seek conflict, but to uphold a peaceful order. The air hummed with the low thrum of powerful engines and the whisper of wind across flight decks. Below the surface, unseen and unheard, other elements of this powerful force moved in silent concert, part of a carefully orchestrated ballet of naval presence. The day promised nothing more than the gentle rhythm of the sea, a routine patrol under a watchful sky. This immense body of water carries more than just ships, it carries the weight of economies. Nearly $3.5 trillion in trade passes through these lanes each year, a lifeline for nations near and far. The United States Navy's presence here is a long-standing commitment to ensuring that this vital passage remains open for all. It is a task that requires not just strength, but also immense restraint. The sailors aboard these vessels understand the delicate balance. They are diplomats as much as they are warriors, their actions scrutinized by the world. Each turn of the rudder, each radar sweep, is a carefully considered move in a complex geopolitical game where the stakes are immeasurably high. On this particular morning, the atmosphere aboard the American ships was one of professional calm. The sailors went about their duties with a practiced efficiency that spoke of countless hours of training. From the bridge of the Nimitz, the commander looked out at the tranquil horizon, his thoughts on the mission's larger purpose. This was not about provocation, it was about presence. It was about demonstrating a commitment to a free and open Indo-Pacific, a principle that benefits every nation that relies on these waters for its prosperity. The silence of the open ocean was a temporary state, a canvas upon which the day's events would soon be painted. The world was watching, even if it did not yet know it. The tranquility was broken at 0923 Coordinated Universal Time. 200 kilometers away, a ship that had been loitering on the edge of the American fleet's sensor range suddenly came to life. It was the Jinchang, a Chinese Type 052 Delta destroyer. Like a predator stirring from its slumber, the vessel's speed jumped from a leisurely 18 knots to a determined 30 knots. It was closing the distance, its bow pointed directly at the heart of the American formation. The message from its masters in Beijing was unspoken but clear: intercept the Americans. Test their resolve. Make them blink first. This was not a chance encounter. It was a deliberate and calculated challenge, a single piece moving forward on the vast chessboard of the sea. Aboard the USS Princeton, the change was detected instantly. At 0926, the ship's powerful Spy-1 radar system, the ever-watchful eye of the strike group, flagged the rapidly approaching contact. Sophisticated computer algorithms analyzed its speed, course, and electronic signature, classifying the threat level as moderate to high. This was not a commercial vessel off its course. This was a warship on an intercept vector. Through the Navy's cooperative engagement capability, a secure data link, this critical information was shared in milliseconds across every ship in the group. The Princeton, the Chung-hoon, and the Kidd All saw the same picture, a single, unified view of the unfolding situation. The challenge had been issued, and now a response was required. The commander of the American strike group received the report on the bridge of the Nimitz. He considered the options. He could sound the alarm for general quarters, sending every sailor to their battle station, an act that would signal high alert and escalate the tension immediately. But he chose a different path, one of restraint and quiet confidence. "Let's see how badly they want to embarrass themselves first," he stated calmly. It was a decision rooted in a deep understanding of his fleet's capabilities. There was no need for a dramatic show of force just yet. Instead, the destroyers USS Chung-hoon and USS Kidd subtly adjusted their positions, moving to create a more robust defensive screen around the priceless asset they protected, the carrier. The Chinese destroyer continued its aggressive approach, slicing through the waves, a gray specter of defiance. Its captain was following orders, pushing the boundaries of international norms. This tactic, often called gray zone aggression, is designed to intimidate and provoke without firing a shot. It aims to create a reaction, to force an opponent into a mistake or an overreaction that can be spun for political gain. The Jinchang was a test. It was a probe, searching for weakness, for hesitation, for any sign that the American resolve was cracking. But the American fleet held its course, a silent, disciplined formation that refused to be rattled. The first move had been made. The game was now afoot. The tension in the air thickened. While the surface engagement remained a standoff, the Chinese military decided to open a new front. At 0935, high above the ocean, a US E-2 Delta Hawkeye airborne early warning aircraft detected a flurry of activity. From the deck of the Chinese carrier Shandong, located far over the horizon, multiple J-15 fighter jets were launching into the sky. Simultaneously, another layer of the challenge emerged from the depths. Sonar operators across the American strike group began picking up the distinct acoustic signature of a submarine. It was a Type 039, a diesel-electric boat, now just 80 nautical miles away. The Chinese were attempting a multi-domain intimidation campaign, using air, surface, and subsurface assets to apply pressure from all sides. This escalation, however, did not catch the American forces by surprise. It triggered a response that was less an alarm and more a symphony of practiced, overwhelming readiness. At 0937, the flight deck of the USS Nimitz transformed. There was no panic, only a controlled and powerful display of naval aviation. The first F/A-18 Echo Super Hornet was locked into the catapult. With a thunderous roar and a cloud of steam, it was launched into the air, accelerating from 0 to 165 miles per hour in just over 2 seconds. Then another, and another. Every 45 seconds, another fully armed fighter jet was flung into the sky. This was a capability the Chinese carrier, with its less efficient ski jump ramp, simply could not match. The American launch sequence was a stunning demonstration of technological and operational superiority. The Shandong's ski jump system limits the weight of its J-15 fighters at takeoff, forcing them to carry less fuel and fewer weapons. In contrast, the Nimitz's steam-powered catapults could launch heavier, fully loaded aircraft, giving them a decisive advantage in range, endurance, and combat power. Joining the Super Hornets were EA-18 Gulf Growlers, the most advanced electronic warfare aircraft in the world. These specialized jets were not designed to fight with missiles, but with microwaves and radio waves. They were the digital ghosts of the fleet, ready to blind and confuse the enemy. As the American jets climbed to meet the approaching challenge, the mood within the U.S. strike group remained one of intense focus. The initial Chinese maneuver, intended to intimidate, had instead unlocked a far superior American capability. The noisy Chinese submarine, easily detected by the advanced sonar suites of the American destroyers, was already being tracked. The launch of their jets had been met with a more rapid and more powerful counterlaunch. The attempt to create a multi-domain problem for the Americans had revealed the immense gap in multi-domain capabilities between the two navies. The symphony of readiness was now playing its opening notes, and its sound was one of calm, undeniable strength. The skies above the South China Sea became a chessboard for the world's most advanced aerial knights. The American F/A-18s, climbing swiftly to their assigned altitudes, immediately established a dominant tactical position. Each pilot was not an island, but a node in a vast interconnected network. Their aircraft were equipped with the state-of-the-art AN/APG-79 AESA radar, a system that could scan, track, and engage multiple targets with a precision their counterparts could only dream of. This information was shared seamlessly between all aircraft through the Link 16 data network, creating a single, comprehensive picture of the battle space for every pilot. They could see everything the Chinese jets were doing, often before the Chinese pilots themselves knew what was happening. In stark contrast, the Chinese J-15 pilots were fighting with a handicap. Their jets relied on older, mechanically scanned radars, which are less precise and can only focus on one target at a time. Lacking a sophisticated data link like Link 16, they depended on voice commands from their own carrier to coordinate their movements. This made them slower to react and forced them to fly in a tight, bunched-up formation simply to maintain visual contact with one another. They were a collection of individual fighters, while the Americans flew as a single, intelligent organism, their movements fluid and perfectly synchronized. The technological gap was not just a matter of equipment, it was a fundamental difference in battlefield awareness. The American pilots, guided by the Hawkeye flying high above, executed a flawless wall formation. They arranged themselves at high, medium, and low altitudes, creating overlapping fields of fire and sensor coverage. This layered defense ensured that there were no gaps for the Chinese fighters to exploit. Any J-15 attempting to approach the carrier group would have to pass through multiple engagement zones, facing threats from several directions at once. It was a textbook display of modern air combat doctrine designed to control the airspace and dictate the terms of any potential engagement. The American pilots were not just flying their planes, they were managing a complex three-dimensional defense system. One of the Chinese pilots, perhaps feeling the pressure or acting on aggressive orders, decided to test the American formation. He peeled away from his group and performed an aggressive flyby on one of the F/A-18s, banking sharply and passing dangerously close. The American pilot, a product of rigorous training and discipline, did not respond with aggression. Instead, with a calm and fluid motion, he maneuvered his Super Hornet. In a matter of 3 seconds, he was perfectly positioned behind the J-15 in an ideal firing solution. The Chinese jet was completely vulnerable, but the American pilot held his fire. The point had been made without launching a single missile. It was a demonstration of superior skill, control, and profound restraint. While the fighters danced their dangerous ballet in the sky, another, quieter battle was being waged in the electromagnetic spectrum. This was the domain of the EA-18G Growlers. As these specialized aircraft approached the Chinese formation, they activated their powerful ALQ-99 jamming pods. Suddenly, the world of the Chinese pilots and their controllers on the Shandong dissolved into chaos. Their communication channels, once filled with commands, were now flooded with static and noise, making coordinated action nearly impossible. The digital thread connecting the J-15 fighters to their carrier was effectively severed, leaving the pilots isolated and confused in a sky full of adversaries. The Growlers did more than just jam communications. They waged a sophisticated campaign of electronic deception against the Chinese radars. The screens that were supposed to show the locations of the American jets began to flicker with false information. Ghost contacts appeared out of nowhere. Phantom aircraft that would appear for a moment and then vanish, drawing the attention of the Chinese pilots and sowing seeds of doubt. They painted a picture of a sky filled with more American planes than there actually were, in places they were not. This electronic sleight of hand was designed to overwhelm the Chinese sensors, and the decision-making capacity of their commanders, turning their own technology against them. This unseen assault had a profound psychological effect. The Chinese pilots, already at a disadvantage with their inferior radars and lack of data sharing, were now flying blind. They could not trust their instruments. They could not communicate effectively with each other or with their ship. They were forced to rely on what they could see with their own eyes, and honestly, that's a terrifying prospect when facing an enemy who could see and track them from miles away with perfect clarity. The American forces owned the electromagnetic spectrum. They were the ghosts in the machine, manipulating the flow of information to create an environment of complete uncertainty for their opponents. This dominance was not accidental. It was the result of decades of investment in cutting-edge electronic warfare technology and the training to use it effectively. The U.S. Navy understands that modern conflict is not just about missiles and dogfights. It is about information. The side that controls the flow of information controls the battle. By blinding the eyes and deafening the ears of the Chinese forces, the Growlers demonstrated a form of power that was subtle yet absolute. They had effectively disarmed the Chinese fighters without ever entering a traditional fight, proving that in the 21st century, the most powerful weapon can be the one that is never seen or heard. As its jets struggled in the air, the Chinese destroyer Jinchang made a dangerously provocative move. At 9:47, it took an action that, in naval terms, is considered one step short of opening fire. The ship's captain ordered his crew to lock the Type 346, a fire control radar, onto the USS Nimitz. This is not the same as a simple search radar, which constantly scans the horizon. A fire control radar is a narrow, intense beam used to guide weapons to a target. Aboard the Nimitz, alarms blared on the electronic warfare consoles. The American crew instantly knew they were being painted by a weapons system. It was a direct, unambiguous threat, a digital finger on a trigger. For 30 tense seconds, the Chinese radar beam held steady on the American supercarrier. On the bridge of the Nimitz, there was no panic, only a cold, professional focus. The American commander had a choice. He could interpret this as an imminent attack and respond in kind, locking his own formidable fire control radars onto the Jinchang. Such a move would be a justified act of self-defense, but it would also be a dramatic escalation, pushing both sides to the very brink of a shooting war. Instead, he chose the path of de-escalation. The American fire control systems remained on standby, ready but silent. They would not be the ones to climb the next rung of the ladder. The American response was one of meticulous documentation and unwavering composure. Every detail of the event, the frequency of the Chinese radar, its precise duration, its source, was recorded. This evidence would be invaluable, a clear record of a provocative act that violated international norms of naval conduct. The sailors in the Nimitz's Combat Information Center worked with quiet intensity, their faces illuminated by the glow of their screens. They trusted their training, their technology, and their commander's judgment. They knew the capabilities of their own defensive systems, from anti-missile cannons to interceptor jets, were more than a match for the threat. They did not need to prove it with a rash action. After 30 seconds that felt like an eternity, the Chinese radar lock disengaged. The immediate threat subsided, but the tension lingered in the air like gunpowder smoke. The Jinchang had crossed a line, a widely understood rule of the sea. They had tested the Americans' nerves and found them to be made of steel. The U.S. Navy's refusal to be baited into a reciprocal radar lock was not a sign of weakness, but of immense strength and discipline. It sent a powerful message. We are not afraid. We are in control, and we will not be the ones to start a war. The line had been drawn in the water, not with weapons, but with composure. While the drama unfolded on the surface and in the air, another chapter was being written in the silent, pressurized world beneath the waves. The Chinese Type 039 submarine, the one detected earlier, had made a critical error. For the past hour, its noisy diesel-electric propulsion system had made it a relatively easy target for the sophisticated AN/SQQ-89 sonar suites aboard the American destroyers. The U.S. Navy had been tracking its every move. At 9:51, the submarine's commander, needing to recharge his batteries and refresh the air inside the boat, ordered the vessel to rise to periscope depth and raise its snorkel. It was a necessary move, but a fatal giveaway. The moment the snorkel broke the surface, its acoustic and thermal signature gave the American sonar operators a perfect, high-confidence fix on its exact location. The hunter had become the hunted. But the American forces did not simply note the submarine's position. They had a far more powerful message to deliver, a psychological blow that would resonate all the way back to Chinese Naval Command. This message would not come from the destroyers tracking the Type 039. It would come from a ghost that the Chinese fleet did not even know was there. For 8 days, a U.S. Virginia-class, nuclear-powered attack submarine had been shadowing the Chinese strike group, a silent, invisible predator. This American submarine was a marvel of undersea technology. Unlike the diesel-electric Type 039, the Virginia-class boat is powered by a nuclear reactor, allowing it to stay submerged for months at a time. It is designed for stealth, coated in special materials that absorb sonar signals and engineered to be quieter than the ocean's own background noise. It had moved with the Chinese fleet, undetected, unheard, and unseen, a testament to American undersea dominance. It had been watching, listening, and waiting for the perfect moment to reveal its presence and, in doing so, reveal the complete vulnerability of the Chinese force. That moment came at 15:47. With a quiet hiss of compressed air, the sleek black hull of the American submarine breached the surface. It did not appear randomly. It surfaced just 6 nautical miles from the Chinese carrier Shandong, well within torpedo range. It was a position of absolute checkmate. The submarine remained visible for a full 90 seconds, its dark sail a stark and undeniable statement against the gray sea. It was a message delivered without a single word. We have been here the whole time. We can get this close whenever we want. You are never safe. Then, as quietly as it appeared, it slipped back beneath the waves and vanished, leaving behind only the stunned silence of the Chinese bridge crew. The surfacing of the Virginia-class submarine was a devastating psychological blow, but the American commander was not finished. The final act of this maritime drama was designed to be an unforgettable display of the sheer scale of American naval air power. At 14:30, the USS Nimitz began what is known as a deck launch or alpha strike. It was not the sequential 45-second interval launch from earlier in the day. This was a torrent, a massive and overwhelming surge of aerial might designed to leave no doubt about the outcome of any potential conflict. It was the final unspoken checkmate in this game of naval chess. In a breathtakingly short period, the flight deck crew, working with a speed and efficiency that borders on artistry, launched 48 aircraft. The air was filled with the continuous deafening roar of jet engines and the percussive boom of the catapults. A swarm of F/A-18E Super Hornets, fully armed with air-to-air and anti-ship missiles, climbed into the sky. They were joined by the EA-18G Growlers, which this time operated at their full, overwhelming jamming power, creating an impenetrable electronic shield around the American fleet and a storm of digital chaos for the Chinese. It was a demonstration of the carrier's primary purpose, projecting overwhelming and sustainable air power anywhere in the world. This massive wave of aircraft did not fly directly towards the Chinese fleet. Instead, they formed a massive circling perimeter, a hornet's nest of technological superiority that was impossible to ignore. The outmatched and low on fuel J-15S, which had been harassed and blinded for hours, had no choice but to turn back. Their pilots, having witnessed the effortless launch of a force that outnumbered them more than 2-1, knew the game was over. They retreated to the Shandong, their mission of intimidation having ended in a clear demonstration of their own fleet's vulnerabilities. The sky now belonged completely to the Americans. The message was delivered not with words, but with presence and capability. The American forces had shown that they could control the surface of the sea, the airspace above it, the depths beneath it, and the electromagnetic spectrum that connects it all. They had absorbed every provocation with disciplined calm. They had met every challenge with a superior response. And now, they put their ultimate advantage on full display. The circling armada of jets was a final, powerful statement. It said that while the U.S. Navy sought peace and stability, it possessed the power to ensure it. There would be no battle today, because the outcome was already decided. The cumulative weight of the American response was now undeniable. The Chinese commanders, having seen their destroyer outmaneuvered, their jets outclassed, their communications jammed, and their submarine exposed by a ghost they never knew existed, were left with only one logical choice. Their multi-domain gambit had failed on every front. The aggressive probe designed to test American resolve had instead received a comprehensive and sobering education in modern naval power. The attempt to make the Americans blink had resulted in their own eyes being held wide open to the vast technological and operational gap they faced. By 1623, the inevitable began. The Chinese strike group, led by the carrier Shandong and the destroyer Jinchang, began to turn away. Their accelerated pace was now in the opposite direction. They were withdrawing, disengaging from the encounter. The retreat was orderly but unmistakable. The official communication from Beijing, released later, would claim that their forces had simply completed scheduled exercises. It was a predictable, face-saving narrative. But for every sailor and aviator in the South China Sea that day, the truth was clear. They had been thoroughly and systematically outmatched. The American forces watched them go. The F/A-18s remained in the air, maintaining their protective watch until the Chinese fleet was well over the horizon. The destroyers held their positions, their radars sweeping the now empty seas. On the bridge of the Nimitz, a quiet sense of professionalism filled the air. There was no celebration, no cheering. This was not a moment for gloating. It was a moment of somber satisfaction. They had successfully de-escalated a dangerous situation while simultaneously demonstrating absolute dominance. They had won a victory without firing a shot, the most profound kind of victory there is. This encounter on June 14, 2025 became a quiet lesson in the art of naval power. It was a story not of war, but of its prevention. It highlighted that true strength lies not only in advanced technology and superior tactics, but in the discipline and restraint to use that power wisely. The U.S. Navy had shown the world that its purpose in these contested waters is to be a force for stability. It had absorbed a challenge, refused to be provoked, and sent an unmistakable message of peaceful strength. As the sun began to set on the South China Sea, the waters were once again calm, guarded by the silent confidence of a fleet that had proven its mastery of the ocean.